It's been days since I finished Yakuza Like a Dragon, and the ending still will not leave my mind. I use zero hyperbole when I tell you that after my 60 plus hours with the game, I consider it a modern day masterpiece. It has been years since a video game, or honestly a piece of media, has hit me as hard as Yakuza 7 did, and I really don't make this statement lightly. It is with zero shame that I admit to you all that I cried after finishing this game, and we're not talking slightly watered up eyeballs, man, this kinda got to me crying. We're talking full blown, tears falling down the cheeks, God, I hope no one in my family sees me right now type of tears. Kaiji Tang as Ichiban deserves a damn Oscar as far as I'm concerned for his entire performance throughout the game, and especially at the game's climax. The final half hour of this game was some of the most powerful acting and voice performance I've ever seen in my life and probably will ever see. I feel like that kind of statement gets thrown around a lot in gaming nowadays, especially with so many narratively focused titles being released. But this shit's real, guys. It's to the point that I think you can make someone watch the ending of this game with zero context and have them grabbing a box of tissues, let alone if you're someone who played through the entire narrative experience with these characters and have an understanding of all the baggage and hardships it took for things to come together as they did. The real reason I make this video isn't to try to sell you guys something that you don't want or try to tell you to even play the game, you know. My motives are much more selfish. After completing this game, I truly just needed to vent about how emotional of an experience it was for me. I needed a place to yell into the void, explore my thoughts, and put my mind at peace, so I figured, what better place to do that than in a video. One of the things that resonated with me the most about this game were its various themes. Ichiban Kasuga is a fantastic character and serves as an excellent vessel for exploring the ideas the writers of the story seemingly wanted to convey, including the significance of family, the necessity of our connections with others, the importance of accountability, and the reality of just how damn hard life can be for many of us on a regular basis. In order to talk about these points, I think it's important to first explore how Kasuga is a foil to Kiryu in nearly every way and how these differences allow Kasuga to explore story elements that wouldn't necessarily be possible for the world's coolest Anarchy. Now, even on a surface level, Kiryu and Kasuga are foils to one another. Everyone at this point has seen Kiryu in his trademark grayish-white suit and red undershirt, versus Kasuga's vibrant red suit with muted white undershirt. And this color difference is also indicative of character traits, with the muted colors of Kiryu's suit reflecting his cool, stoic, and calm demeanor, and the red of Kasuga's suit reflecting his tendency towards powerful and intense emotion, and his overall explosivity as a person. Kasuga is very much his own character, but I enjoyed how the writers of Yakuza infused Ichiban with character traits of both Kiryu and Akira Nishikiyama, a name those of you familiar with Yakuza 0 and 1 will know well. Those of us who have been fans of the Yakuza series know well the kind of person that the Dragon of Dojima is up to this point. Kiryu is a man's man in every sense of the word, being calm, stoic, full of integrity, never losing his cool. He's yet to find an activity that he isn't excellent at. Kiryu is a legend in the world of Yakuza at this point, and with very good reason. The man is as close to perfect as any one man could possibly hope to be. Now, Akira Nishikiyama, aka Nishiki, is Kiryu's sworn brother and rival in the first game of the series. Nishiki is an outspoken, fashionable, and emotional man, much in the opposite vein of Kiryu, which is something that makes them even closer to one another. They balance each other out in an important way. The loss of Kiryu during his time in prison played a significant part in his downfall. Kiryu was Nishiki's anchor in many ways. He kept him grounded and level-headed. Kiryu is a man comfortable in his own skin. He is confident, just because he knows what he is capable of, and he does not feel that he has anything to prove to anyone. He was content in his role in the family, and much like the dragons mentioned in fables, Kiryu served as a guardian for those that he treasured. Kiryu is a dragon through and through, and this concept is symbolized in the back tattoo that he is known for. Nishiki was a man of ambition. He was a man who felt crushed by the burden of his life circumstances, felt like he was constantly in the shadow of the greatness of those around him, namely Kiryu, and in the end, he succumbed to these pressures in order to see his ambition through and finally claim what he saw as the power and control that had eluded him his whole life. Nishiki is the koi fish. Japanese folklore speaks of the tale of a koi whose life is spent struggling upstream. The koi struggles and struggles until one day it eventually passes the dragon gate and is deemed worthy of being a dragon itself. This is perfectly representative of Nishiki, the man who spent his life struggling to become a dragon, a life spent grasping for power that always seemed just out of reach. And this topic now leads us to Ichiban, a near-perfect marriage of the two men. Ichiban is an emotional, outspoken, bull-headed mass of a man, traits evoking the image of Nishiki. But what separates Ichiban is his moral compass. Ichiban is a man born with the will of the dragon. He will desperately fight for those that he loves and the ideals he believes to be significant. He is not motivated by power, but rather has a higher sense of morality that is not directed by the beliefs of those around him. He fights for what's right, even if it's inconvenient for him. And this is what makes the dragonfish tattoo on his back absolutely perfect. He is a man with the will of a dragon, but he is still rough around the edges, and his full potential has not been realized, embodying the fish aspect of his brand. Ichiban is a marriage of his predecessors, while at the same time being an entirely unique entity with his own likes, dislikes, hang-ups, faults, and strengths. Now, onto the topic of paying homage to those whom came before us, Like a Dragon is a beautiful meditation on the age-old debate between nature versus nurture, exploring the ways that family, personal connection, coupled with one's internal frame of mind, can open up the doors of opportunity or lead to tragedy. The lesson the narrative is able to weave through the past of Ichiban and Masato Arakawa are powerful and gut-wrenching at times, and I believe they are absolutely worth a discussion. Kasuga, aka Rock Bottom Ichiban, aka Ichibad, is a figure whose life began in what many would consider the lowest of low conditions. Ichiban was born in a soapland and raised by figures whom the world often judges as being the worst of the worst. Prostitutes, gangsters, criminals, and all other manner of society's villains, quote-unquote, are those who raise Ichiban to be the man that he is. Jiro Kasuga tried his best to teach Kasuga as well as he could under the circumstances, and then the elder Arakawa took over when Ichiban began his life in the Yakuza. A neat little thing about how Ichiban's story began is that he was saved from being killed by the Yakuza after claiming to be a member of the Arakawa family. Ichiban thought for sure he was dead, as at this time he was a literal nobody to the clan, let alone Arakawa himself. So when Arakawa showed up and was willing to give his finger with no hesitation in order to save his life, this left a lifelong impression on Ichiban, whom agreed to be his loyal follower from that point on. The thing that makes this moment interesting, though, is that once the coin locker situation is revealed and one is aware of Ichiban potentially being the true son of Arakawa, it makes the game's message of the sacrifices a parent is willing to make for the sake of their children that much greater. Arakawa at this time did not even know of the potential true nature of his relationship to Ichiban, but if the lessons put forth in Like a Dragon are true, fate has a mysterious way of bringing family close together when needed. So to continue with the original thought regarding Like a Dragon's meditation on the role of family versus personal responsibility, Ichiban, being a man who was seemingly raised by the dregs of society, should have by all intents and purposes come out as a piece of shit, to put it bluntly, if stereotypes are to be believed. It would have been no surprise to anyone looking just on the surface level if Ichiban was a complete failure of a human being with no morals of decency, because he was a mere whorehouse baby, right? A human being doomed to failure from the beginning of his life, with the name Ichiban, meaning number one, being little more than a cruel piece of irony the universe had played upon him. This is juxtaposed by Masato Arakawa, the penultimate villain of our story, and a man who had everything around him and others constantly waiting hand and foot for him ever since the day he was born. He was born with a disability, so his father Masumi Arakawa constantly had members of the family playing chauffeur to him, doing literally whatever he asked and the minute that he asked, and he never wanted for a thing. Yakuza masterfully showcases one of the potential downfalls of being born into privilege. Due to the privileged individual being used to constantly getting whatever it is they want, they can soon begin to see people as tools. They no longer view those around them as individuals of just as much significance as them, who have their own lives and their own desires and wants and needs. And if they're not careful, it's easy for someone with this background to begin to take a utilitarian approach to their relationships. They begin to keep individuals around as long as they have a rational and practical use for them, but the moment they become inconvenient or obstinate, as people are wont to do, they become disposable, quite literally so in Masato's case. Masato played the game of politics quite well, but what he failed to realize is that human life is not some political game, and when one is dealing with others, it is impossible to take the emotional element out of it, because this is simply the creature that we are. It is an inevitable truth that if one continuously uses and mistreats others, the consequences will always catch up. Masato thought that he was above the law, He had killed people without hesitation if it furthered his agenda. Ichiban even served 19 years in prison for his crimes because he was not strong enough to deal with the consequences. The years and years he spent shirking responsibility for his actions and avoiding accountability made him think that he was above karma, above the natural order. And this is why someone like Ichiban pisses off Arakawa so much. How could a bastard who came from absolutely nothing, whom was literally raised in a soap land, who spent 2 decades of his life in prison for a crime he did not commit, whom had been seemingly betrayed by those whom he had loved the most, have the absolute audacity to oppose his will? How could someone like this have the gall to smile like they do, to continue to trust others and foster relationships like they do, knowing everything they had endured? Masato failed to realize until the very end something that Ichiban knew instinctively, the trait that served him and drew others to him despite his lack of social station, money, or power. Ichiban, above all else, understands the significance of interconnectedness. In his younger years, Ichiban was quite similar to Masato. He lived in loneliness and isolation with a massive chip on his shoulder surrounding the general unfairness of the world and a seeming lack of fit anywhere in it. Arakawa extending his hand to him would forever change Ichiban's life. From that moment on, Ichiban would learn the power of having someone who seems value in you, and the power that comes from this. Much like the hero in the classic JRPG, Ichiban learned the power of relationships. His relationships with Masumi Arakawa, Nanba, Adachi, Saiko, and all of the rest of his gang gave him the support that he needs to stand toe-to-toe with insurmountable odds. More than once in the story does Ichiban find himself in over his head in regards to the forces that he is tangling with, and if it were not for his friend's loyalty and encouragement, things would have gone far, far differently. This point is driven home in his confrontation with Kiryu, where Ichiban admits that after the fight that Kiryu is the real deal and has what he considers to be true strength. Kazuma chuckles and tells Kasuga that he is unrefined and has not reached his full potential yet, but he has what it takes to be the real deal if he can remember one thing: to continue trusting those whom have helped him get this far and place care in the friendships that he has fostered. While Kiryu may on the surface appear to play the part of the stoic loner very well, Kiryu is very aware of the importance and necessity of close relationships. His relationships with Haruka, the kids in the orphanage, Date, Majima, and so many others made Kiryu the man that he is. He did not grow great in a vacuum. Every piece of support he received, along with every challenge his friends presented him with, helped turn him into the legend that he is. They were an integral part in the creation of the Dragon of Dojima. Kiryu imparted this wisdom to Ichiban, whom we can see internalized it due to the plan he was able to create with the help of his homies in their final confrontation in the Millennium Tower. Kasuga's interconnectedness is in stark contrast to Masato Arakawa's loneliness, created as a manifestation of his lust for power. Kasuga versus Arakawa ends up being the battle of two opposing philosophies, interconnectedness versus isolation. And this is the very essence of what I feel makes Yakuza so great. Its ability to weave complex ideological narratives into well-realized characters, weaving a tapestry that can be enjoyed on both the surface level and deeper level depending on the individual watching and how invested they wish to become. I love this game, man, truly. Ichiban's talk about having two dads rather than one and how bonds are forged through choice and experience are deeper than blood ties spoke to me in a major way. I wholeheartedly agree. What makes us family isn't just blood or DNA. It is the decisions we make every day to show those around us how much we love them through action, communication, and the time we spend with one another. This is what it means to be a real family, and this is what it means to be Yakuza.